None of them were armed.
Sheriff Dave,
So,
can you give additional information about the law officer that passed away?
Well, it's out there. It's Sergeant Ron Helis. He's a 54-year-old, 29-year veteran of the sheriff's office. He's married with a grown son, and as I've said several times, he went in there to save people and made the ultimate sacrifice.
Sheriff, is there a commonality with the civilian victims, whether in age or gender or some other demographic, or even by location within the crime scene where they're located?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, I once they get inside, you use the word random, and I think that it appears to be random inside. I don't think he was targeting people. We could do a further investigation. It could prove to be true, but it doesn't appear to be that way at this point.
What is the plan?
When and where he bought the gun?
Pardon me?
Do you have a clue when and where he purchased the gun?
Our partners at ATF are currently in the process of investigating that for us. No, I don't know exactly. I believe there might have been 4 or 5 that I saw, but I'm not sure how many were in there.
What is the plan to honor Sergeant Helis today?
I'm sorry?
What is the plan to honor Sergeant Helis?
At 10 o'clock we will... At 10 o'clock we'll be moving his body from Los Robles Hospital to the medical examiner's office in Ventura, and we'll be convoying him over.
With the loss of the sergeant, what is this community lost?
It's lost a hero. It's lost a great human being. It's part of the loss of the 11 other victims that are in there, and it's all part of the suffering that we're all going to go through as family members and parents and brothers and sisters on this tragic, senseless loss of life.
Sheriff, what is your message?
He was within a couple years of retiring, yes.
Can you talk about any training that these deputies may have been through recently to go in there? Were they prepared?
We do ongoing active shooter training with all of our personnel. In our county, we train with our firefighters also. So if we need medical rescue, we take our firefighters in with us. So it's an ongoing training that we've been doing for years.
What can you say about the number of injuries and what happened with him, how badly they're injured, and number of people?
It's my understanding, and again, don't hold me to this, that there's one other minor gunshot injury, and there's somewhere between 8 and 15 other injured, mostly cuts from jumping out of windows, diving under tables. They're relatively minor compared to everything else.
Sheriff, what's your message to...
We don't know that much yet.
Sheriff, were there exits? What kind of exits does the bar will have? Several? Or?
Yeah, there's fire escapes, and the patrons exited out of all those. They ran out of back doors, they broke windows, they went through windows, they hid up in the attic, they hid in the bathroom. So unfortunately, our young people or people at nightclubs have learned that this may happen, and they think about that. Fortunately, it probably saved a lot of lives that they fled the scene so rapidly.
Sheriff, was he involved in a bar fight before? The suspect firearm?
Not that
any history, any issues before?
he was the victim of he was the victim of a battery in January of 2015. It wasn't here. It wasn't at this bar.
What bar was it?
At a different bar.
Where was it?
Do you know what bar it was?
I don't.
You found his...
Yeah, it was in Thousand Oaks. I can't remember which bar it was.
He drove to the car, he drove to the bar in his mom's car. Is that accurate?
I'm not sure whose car it is. He drove to the bar in a car. I'm not sure who it's registered
do you know
to.
which car that is on scene right
yes,
now?
yes, we do.
Found any other evidence within the car?
We're still obtaining a search warrant to do that. We're not allowed to go in without the warrant.
Do you know how long that shooting lasted from when he first opened gunfire?
No, I don't.
Are there any concerns with that car at this point?
No, we put the bomb dog by it and everything, and we feel comfortable. I was just standing by it, so we're good.
Do you guys have more to do?
We'll be here for 15 or 20 hours at least. We still need to go through identify. Our FBI partners are doing a great job. They brought in their expert evidence team. They're flying people in from Quantico to do the scene. So we'll be here a long, long time.
And what does it look like?
Like hell?
Can you tell us the sex of the victims, the ratio?
No, we don't have those things identified yet. We have the house secured. We go in, we secure the house, we make sure everything's safe in there, and then we go ask the judge for a search warrant to search it more thoroughly. So we feel safe that it's secured right now.
Was there anyone else at the house?
Have you reached out or made contact with any of his relatives? And have they indicated that there was something that may have been at issue leading up to this?
We've had some conversations with some family members, and it would be premature to talk about that. It's still part of the ongoing investigation.
Do you plan to stay on until the investigation is
No, I'm no longer the sheriff, but tomorrow at midnight. But I will certainly be a part with the family.
Can you share more on that, Sheriff? You're retiring tomorrow?
I am.
Sir, what is your message to families who still have loved ones unaccounted for?
We have a family center set up. They need to call the number, and we are expediting as quick as we can because my heart goes out to those parents and family members that don't know. So contact our family help center, and we will coordinate with you. And as soon as we have any information, it will be going right to the families.
Do you know the age range of the victims?
I don't.
For this to be one of your last days on the job, I mean, what's that like? What's going through your line of duty?
It can't be any worse.
And how's your department doing? What's the mood?
They're mourning, they're sad, it's awful. Ron was a great guy, he was close to everybody. He was a hard worker, and the hearts are broken all over.
He was also nearing retirement. What do you say to the fact that he didn't get there and this had to happen?
I just say a prayer for him and his family. I don't know if it'll be me, but I think the next thing that would be important to you is when we can release victims' names, and we will do that as soon as we can. And if we can do it incrementally, we'll do that, so we don't have to wait, because I imagine some of the identifications are going to take longer. So, but candidly, that's going to be at least a couple hours. Yeah.
Just talk about the weapon one more time and what you can tell based on the weapon and what was recovered. The weapon was a Glock 21, 45 caliber, and again, the weapon was designed in California to hold a magazine of 10 rounds and one in the chamber, but he had an extended magazine on it, but we have no way to know how many rounds he actually had in there.
And that's illegal to have in California, that type of...
The extended magazine, yes. Correct. Yeah, the gun was legally purchased. At least that's ATF is looking into details for us.
Date of purchase?
They don't have that for us yet. They're the experts.
Motive. Can you say anything about motive?
We have no idea. We have no idea. We don't know that. No, we have no idea. Don't know that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
All right, you've just been listening there to Sheriff Jeff Dean describing what he now knows about the suspected shooter in this horrific massacre that happened at the Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks, California. Here's what we know according to the sheriff. This young man's name is Ian Long. That is the house that police are now searching. A little history on Ian Long, according to Sheriff Dean. He had been involved in some kind of an altercation a couple of years earlier at a local bar. He, in April of last year, had displayed some, what the sheriff called irrationality. Mental health specialists were called to speak with him because he's a former United States Marine. Mm-hmm. There was some thought that perhaps he was going through PTSD. They cleared him of a 5150, which is generally a mental health
I think you would detain against your will for
against your will.
Time.
He was cleared of that, and we hadn't heard of him until today, until he is now being suspected in this massacre. The gun that was used in the shooting was a Glock 21 45 caliber handgun. It had 10 rounds. It holds 10 rounds with one in the chamber. Police also say that the magazine for that weapon had an extended clip. In other words, an extended magazine. They now do believe that he shot himself. He was not killed by law enforcement.
So, and we heard a few other things about what happened inside. We heard that there were possibly off-duty police officers in there. I mean, there were a lot of people in there at the time, and the sheriff there described parents saying that some of those off-duty police officers stood in front of their children
Shielding
to protect
their kids.
them. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
And also the other thing that we'll just point out, we've been talking a lot about the hero, Sheriff Ron Heelis. He was on the phone with his wife, but he hadn't called her before. There was reporting that he had called her before he went into this situation. He was actually on the phone with her when he told her, listen, I got to go because I'm responding to something here.
So this shot right here is a home in Newbury Park, California. This is whatever police found, it connected them to this house. So we don't know if this is his home or not, but they are searching the house now for additional evidence connected to the shooting. So joining us now to talk all about what we know, where the future of this investigation will go, is security analyst Paul Violas. So good to have you here, Paul.
Thanks, Marie.
Because I mean, you know all about this sort of thing. So, you know, let's just start out with sort of the basics. What we know so far, when you heard about this shooting, what were some of the questions that started to come to mind for you?
Actually, the first thing that came to mind was this is just about a year ago when we were together covering the Las Vegas shooting, and it was surrounding a very similar type of demographic of individual or group, that being a very large country western musical fair. So that was the very first thing that came to mind. And the second part is then now also it was a large bar. So are we looking at another Pulse shooting? And did we actually have the shooter? So many things rush at that very first moment, as I'm sure with all of our viewers, and you see all this information. Clearly now that funnel has narrowed down considerably. So as opposed to at a point where a shooter has survived an incident, now with the shooter deceased, we're going to be looking at forensics and we're going to be looking at foreseeability.
So, Paul, stand by because we've got Carter Evans, our correspondent, who's on the ground there. He's going to join us, and just there he is. Carter, so you were also listening to that press conference. A couple of takeaways, Carter. I don't think anybody realized up until that moment where Sheriff Dean essentially said tomorrow he's retiring from the police force, that hero, Sergeant Ron Heelis, was a great friend of his, that they worked out together. There are so many different aspects of this investigation that are going to, linger with people for a very long time.
Yes, this is very difficult for this sheriff. He was choked up at many times throughout the morning. He knew this sergeant very, very well personally. As for how they tracked down this gunman's identity, well, they found some evidence at the scene and they were able to match that with his name. That led them to the house in Newbury Park, about 6 miles away from here. And I understand that they were trying to confirm his identity with a fingerprint, and it sounds like they were able to confirm his identity one way or the other, because that's how the sheriff was able to release his name. 28-year-old Ian Long. We know he was a former Marine. We know he's had run-ins with the law before, but mostly minor things, traffic infractions. He was the victim of an assault at the bar. Recently, though, at a bar, and recently, though, sheriff's investigators say police were called out to his home for some reason, and they brought out a crisis intervention team because he was irate. We know he is a former Marine, and there is talk of that he may have been treated or being treated for PTSD. But as far as his motive for the shooting, the massacre that occurred inside the bar last night, that's still unclear.
And so what do we know so far about what's this house in Newbury Park that it seems like police are searching?
I don't know too much about the house right now. I just know that it's not too far from here. He may have lived there with his mother. We're still trying to confirm that right now. But we do know investigators are at his house right now combing for more evidence.
Carter, there was something that Sheriff Dean mentioned. He mentioned that last April, as you pointed out, there was some kind of altercation. Mental health specialists arrived there to sort of take a look at him and talk to him, and that a 5150, they called it, was not secured. Now, for those of us in New York and across the country, explain what 5150 is.
Yeah, 5150 is the code that police officers use to describe a person who is essentially not in their right mind, who is not responding in normal ways, and that's to warn fellow officers who are coming about what they are about to encounter. So we're learning more about this individual, and hopefully from that we'll be able to learn what his motivation for this was.
Right. Carter Evans on the scene for us in California. Carter, thank you so much. We'll check back in with you a little later. Thank you. All right, so turning back to Paul now. Paul, so it's interesting because, generally when these sorts of things happen, people will say, look, there's an individual who may have had some mental issues. Now, of course, you mentioned something, and I forget the phrase that you used while we were listening to the press conference, because the shooting has already occurred. There's going to be a look back to see what kinds of signs were missed.
Exactly.
This 5150 was not secured. They felt that it wasn't necessary in this case. Will that be something that is taken a look at?
Rest assured, and I can tell you right now, Vlad, as sure as that we are sitting here or standing here right now, that's happening as we speak. And that's going to be closely scrutinized as to how he got past the 5150. And for our viewers to understand, that is a very in-depth psychological analysis. And it looks to whether someone is a threat to themselves or to others. And it's a very, very in-depth look. Across the country, it's also known as a Baker Act, and various states call it a different thing, but it's the same thing. It also allows law enforcement or family members to involuntarily commit an individual for those two reasons. So when they say he cleared that, that speaks volumes to what they saw when they evaluated
It's not just a chat, right? That's what I first thought. It's just a chat. They talk to him. He seems okay. You move on. No, you're saying it's a...
Right. Normally it's 72 hours. Normally it's a 72-hour hold to assess whether or not this individual's a threat. So, and there are a variety of reasons for that. So when they say he's cleared, you can be sure that's going to go, law enforcement's going to go back right now. They're going to look at that. They're going to interview everybody. And they just said the FBI's team from Quantico's coming. I can tell you right now, having done this almost 4 decades, that's my first stop. I'm going to take a look at that. No question about it.
What does the fact that he's a veteran, a former Marine, say to you?
Well, I think really, Anne-Marie, what that told me was when they said, and the account was when he came into the building itself. Marines are exceptionally well trained in building entry. So when he came in, they show him coming in, weapon up, and the first thing he did was go to the security guard to eliminate the force, right? Eliminate opposition. And then the second was to start looking across the room, as we were listening to the CBSN coverage earlier this morning, looking across the room as to where he was going to shoot. He was calculated. He used a smoke grenade in order to either cloud people, disorient people. We don't know exactly what it was. I mean, Vlad, your service, you know this too. It could have also been a flashbang, could have been loud to disorient and to keep people shocked. So he could have gotten a greater count when it comes to actually discharging the firearm. So when I heard that, it spoke tactical.
And what about this gun, this Glock 21 45 caliber gun with the extended chamber? What kind of gun is it? How easy is it to maneuver? How easy is it to hide? It's
relatively simple. It's not that heavy and it's not that big. Having that 10-round magazine, the magazine, if you figure, is about this big. One in the chamber. When an extended magazine, as the sheriff was saying, there are a variety of extended magazines, so it could have been 15 shots or more. We don't know. And we also don't know at this point, Anne-Marie, if he had other magazines with him. They haven't disclosed that. That's part of the forensic part, as Vlad was asking earlier. That's part of the forensic part of this investigation, because we're going to look right now to see shell casings and to see if they're the consistent shell casings or were there shell casings from other weapons we don't know about at this point.
You know, one of the questions Anne-Marie and I were asking other law enforcement officials as we were talking and other reporters is what the connection to this establishment was, and the fact that, Carter just essentially revealed to us that it's just a couple of miles away. I want to play for our viewers some sound of the witnesses who survived this shooting and what they had to say. Some really moving sound from a couple of women who were able to escape the bar. Let's listen.
At the bar, having fun, dancing, and then all of a sudden you hear like the bang bang of the gunshots, and it just started going crazy, and people were pushing. We thought it was a joke. We didn't take it seriously at first. It's kind of like you freeze because it sounded like firecrackers, and you kind of just everyone just dropped down to the floor, and then again, so I thought it was a joke, and we couldn't get out because the shooting was on that side. So then our friends got the bar stools and they started slamming it against the window so we could get out.
It's okay, darling. It's okay. It's okay.
That's how we were able to get out. They broke the window. They broke the window and we were able to climb out and get out.
When you
we're here. We're speaking with this young woman who was one of the ones who escaped. Were you able to see his face at all?
No, because it was like smoky in there as soon as it started shooting. So I couldn't really see much.
Did all of you and your friends get out okay?
We're still missing. We're still missing. We don't know. We don't know where they are. We haven't heard anything.
How many were you?
There's a big group of like 15 of us. It's a big group. We're like a family. We all know each other. We're all friends. We're all family.
You know, listening to those women, it's just absolutely heartbreaking to hear them because they're sort of still processing it as they're describing it. And as you can see, as she's describing it and realizing and understanding what she and her friends just lived through, the realization starts to hit and they start to break down. And I'm going to keep sort of focusing on this connection that the shooter may have had to this establishment because to me, there's got to be some connection because you just don't randomly turn up at a place like that, living only a couple of miles away from it.
Rest assured, Vlad, and I've been fortunate enough to work with you for a long time. We've done this before, Anne Marie, right? We've done this before. Without question, I will tell you unequivocally, when we go back, when we look at this 3-4 days from now, we're going to find he selected that particular location for a reason. He selected that day for a reason and that time of the evening for a reason. There's no question about it. It's well calculated. Think of the tactical approach. Think of the planning that went into this, right? So he's, as the sheriff said, he didn't drive down the highway and decide he was going to pull in there. He went there for a reason. Now, it could have been the demographic of the individuals that were there. It could have speculated. It could have been the fact that there were a lot of college students there, and maybe he had some type of issue with college students. It could have been that he was a former Marine. There were other Marines there. Maybe there was an issue there. We don't know. Because one of the things we mentioned earlier, we still don't know how he was discharged from the military.
Somebody asked the question of Sheriff Dean, and he didn't have the information.
And that's going to be part of the investigative process. Going back forensically, as you mentioned before, how was he discharged? That's going to speak volumes, right? Anne-Marie, you said it before during the break. It doesn't just happen. So how was he discharged? What was it like during his military service? And the big part, too, when he came out of the military, was he able to assimilate into society? And so all of this information right now, investigators are starting to focus on, break down who's going to be responsible for it, and we will learn more by tonight. By evening news, as we go into tomorrow, we're going to know a lot more than we do right now.
You know, you hear PTSD, and there was some speculation that maybe he might have been suffering from it when they met up with him in April. And I think people automatically assume that you have to somehow be in combat or in order to suffer from PTSD, but not necessarily.
No, not at all.
Reporters suffer from.
But I mean, in the military, you hear that, and sometimes, you know, you've heard, oh, well, you didn't even see combat. How can you be suffering from PTSD?
Right. Well, in fact, Anne-Marie, some of the young ladies that we just saw, right here at CBSN with this coverage, they're going to be suffering from PTSD. There's no. Think about what they just went through, right? I mean, and you mentioned it, Vlad. You know, the myriad of emotion from disbelief to fear to shock. Right. And so.
I want to play another little bit of sound before we wrap this discussion up, because this is America Today. We have learned that there were also individuals in that bar who were in Las Vegas. You and I were in Las Vegas in the wake of that shooting, which happened. We're just a couple of days away from that anniversary. I want to play a bit of sound of what they had to say.
Just did everything I could to try and make sure that people coming out of the building were going in the right direction. If they were hurt, that we're doing whatever we could to get them going in the right direction, to get treatment. We knew staging was not close, so that people that needed urgent attention needed to get taken to the staging area. And after we took, our buddy of mine took the guy with the gunshot wound to the staging area. We went back closer, and we're just waiting to see if there's anyone coming out that need our help.
And from what I understand, this isn't the first active shooter situation you've been in?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the second time in about a year and a month that this has happened. I was at the Las Vegas Route 91 mass shooting, as well as probably 50 or 60 others who are in the building at the same time as me tonight. It's a big thing for us. You know, we all are a big family, and unfortunately, this family got hit twice.
You know, that's the I hadn't heard before because the sound was really bad and we were in the adrenaline of reporting.
Family was there.
50 or 60 people that were in Las Vegas were in the bar. At this bar. Now, to me, and the way that he was sort of describing it as if it was, you know, you would think that he'd lead with that, oh my God, I was in a shooting similar to this last year. It was sort of like he's describing it calmly. This is the world that we live in right now, where the chances, the probability that an American will be a victim or survive a shooting like this is all too often common.
Vlad, this is very much the new normal. I mean, I remember when we were covering the incident in Lower Manhattan, where the vehicle came, and one of the things that you said when you were covering, I remember this, was I ride my bike there.
Yeah.
You know,
Every day.
Right. Are these things that we should expect? I also like to say, though, when you see this, we see the worst in people, but we also see the best in people. We see cops, off-duty cops, that stood in front of other people as human shields. We see individuals like that, regular citizens, that did what they could to help evacuate. So as much as we saw the worst in a human being today, I think we also saw some of the best in people as well.
Certainly because of that, fewer people were killed and injured in this incident.
Those police officers, off-duty police officers that Sheriff Dean described in his press conference, who reports are that they shielded patrons there, and certainly Sergeant Ron Healis, who leaves behind a wife, an adult child, and as we heard from Sheriff Dean and from Ron Hosko, our also security analyst for CBS News, describing him the true definition of heroism and valor.
Without question. God rest his soul.
Indeed.
Paul, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
So coming up after the break, we're going to take a look at some of the other news happening today, including why Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is in the hospital right now. It's not that bad. She's going to be okay.
I was going to say, let's just make sure everybody knows she's
got
okay.
Some fractured ribs. We'll tell you about it. And we're also taking a look at what lies ahead for the Mueller probe now that Attorney General Jeff Sessions has resigned, and what the consequences could be for President Trump.
And we'll break that all down for you right here on CBSN. CBS News, always on.